Okay, awesome. Okay, welcome to the fourth episode on machine learning for beginners. Today we have with us Shraddha Patel, who recently graduated from Carnegie Mellon University in Australia and has been working as a consultant. She has experience in terms of AI and data engineering. And the aim of this webinar series is to help the newbies in machine learning to get started with the basic steps to building their careers in industry. And also, these videos would be accompanied by some of the industry speakers who have been working in this domain for quite long and sharing their experiences of what the industry looks like and what's the current demand like. And Shraddha is from Australia, so unlike the previous videos, we have a bit of insights from how the Australian job industry market looks like in AI and data engineering, and it should be a very valuable insight for us. So I'll just quickly introduce whoever is on the screen. Starting from me, I'm Jay. I'm a research assistant at Arizona State University in USA, and currently pursuing my grad studies in computer science with a focus on artificial intelligence. Omkar?
Hi, I'm Omkar Damle. I'm currently pursuing my grad studies at New York University, and I'm focusing my studies in machine learning currently. Yeah, Aditya?
Hi, my name is Aditya. I'm a graduate student studying computer science at UCLA. And since this is the fourth episode, I hope you have learned our names by now.
Hopefully, yes. Shraddha, would you like to go? Some brief intro?
Thank you so much for having me. I am pretty excited to talk with everybody. And I know it has been, whoever is working in this field or whoever intends to work in this field must have been a roller coaster ride where you don't really know where to go, what to do, and what to expect. And I hope I'm able to bust some myths around it, or at least give you some insights as to how to get started, like how to find an internship or a job instead of just doing your competitions on Kaggle or any other data sites.
Awesome. Yeah. So, as your professional timeline says, you did your graduate and you did your job experience in India as a software development engineer. Then you moved on to getting a higher education degree, master's degree in Australia. And then you joined at various places where the applications were limited to AI and data engineering. So, what was your first outburst in the domain of AI, or what exactly made you curious to do a master's in the domain of computer science of AI, and what was the first experience in the professional career look like for you?
So I got started in 2014, I think. So that was in the third year, and we used to have this course on information retrieval with Prasanjit Majumdar. Anybody from the city knows him.
Yes.
So so that was the course, and there was this research paper thing that was going on. So the conference was called Forum for Information Retrieval and Evaluation. So we participated in that, and we won the task for Gujarati at that time. It was just a language classification task of that sort. At that time, it wasn't really called AI, right? So there were no specific terms like machine learning, AI, like all these terms didn't exist. So it was mostly just search engine stuff, information retrieval, things like that. And yeah, that got me curious. But like now you have a ton of jobs in that. I didn't have any job at that time, so I was like, okay, let's just stick to web development because that's the thing that's going on right now, right? So I took a job in web development, did it for a year, and I was like, no, I need something else. Like this is not something that I want to do for my life, and I don't think I don't think even AI is something that I might end up doing for my whole life, right? So that. With that thought in mind, I was like, okay, let's think of something which can be done, which excites me, at least for the present moment. So I applied to CMU. I got an offer from CMU Australia, and the degree was in IT, but they had a focus in business intelligence and data analytics. And it was mostly like you have like the curriculum in DA, right? You are given like fixed sets of subjects for the first 2 years, and then you can choose things on your own, stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'll just take all the general courses, and then for the next year, I'm just going to take everything, machine learning, stuff like that. But so once I started with CMU, that was really my thought, and that was where I was getting at. I also took other courses, mostly because I was still in love with software development, maybe not web development. So I took courses on cloud, which was immensely helpful. I So
Mhm.
that particular course, if somebody ever intends to go to Carnegie Mellon, please do take that course because it's insane. It's going to keep you up almost 3 or 4 nights out of 7 for one semester. But the kind of value that you get from that course is immense, right? So you learn how to implement things on all the three clouds, which if anybody hasn't figured out by now, like cloud is the
The
thing, is the
next big
thing.
thing.
You have
Yes.
to know it. Like there are no two ways about it. Even if you're a data scientist, just knowing statistics is not going to be enough.
Right.
Right? You have to know cloud, you have to know how to implement things and how to make it work on scale. After that, I just started with an internship. It was about automating sales prospecting. So if there is just a website of a business, you basically scrape the data and then try and match it against like the client's customer base. So just trying to identify if a business would be a good prospect or not. So this was a B2B uh, sales prospecting kind of a platform. And that was just for the university. So I finished that and then moved to Melbourne. Started working in a company called Appster, and they went under like in December. So I was out of a job there.
Okay.
For Appster, I was mostly working on client projects. So their major customer base was startups and just people coming up with cool ideas and how to implement them. And I was mostly responsible for their machine learning components in any of their products. I spent most of my 6 months building a chatbot, which would answer like sports questions, give you live updates, personalize updates based on which team you're following, what's your favorite player, stuff like that. Uh, and yeah, now I'm working as a consultant in Servian, and I am trying to keep my work as much as focused to ML as I can. But at the moment, I'm doing a lot many things. So visualization, analytics in general, data warehousing, anything that literally comes in my way.
Right.
So, what exactly do you mean by consultant? Is it, I mean, is it somebody who has to straddle both the tech side and and somebody who has to have a business acumen?
As a consultant, yes. So if anybody intends to work in a consultancy, this is pretty much what you're going to do. You're going to go step into a business, understand their business requirements, and even if you know hi-fi tech stuff, you will have to hold yourself back and be like, okay, what do these guys need? How do we solve their problems? And that is where you have to be really uh, careful as to not propose something which is world changing, because as much as AI or ML has to be world changing, we are not really at that stage yet. So focus on applications which are much more on the line of augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence. By augmented intelligence, I mean a system that is just going to make other people's jobs easier.
Right.
Right? So if there are customer service applications, so you have FAQ pages, like big FAQ pages, and sometimes might not have enough context around it, and sometimes it's just difficult to read through the whole thing and find out one thing. So companies at the moment are generally looking to try to automate that process, where it also remembers the context, so it knows, okay, it knows certain background information about you, and then can give you suggestions, can answer your questions, even just build sign-in attempts. So like you don't have to put in your password and everything else. Like it just remembers your credentials, things like that, and then just basically just makes it a very smooth and streamlined process. So that's pretty much the stage we are at, and that is what consultants like me are expected to do.
Right. So also jumping back to one of the things that you mentioned, like you made your transition from software development engineer that were you doing your job in India, you finally said this is not it. I want to move ahead and learn something new. So would you strongly agree that having a bachelor knowledge or bachelor degree knowledge is not exactly very satisfying for getting an ML or data engineering or AI jobs in general? or is there a very great value addition doing your master's degree or a higher any PhD degree?
I don't think it's necessary. Okay. I am strongly against doing a degree just so that you can get into something. Obviously, like just doing a degree opens you up to a lot many things, so it just makes the whole process easier, right? So because you if you're going to be on a campus, they have contacts, they have companies coming in, and they're just basically, and even for the companies, right, they're just going to filter out the process. I mean, they're just going to make it a better streamlined process for the companies, but it is not necessary. So even if you don't have a research oriented degree, you can still be in the field of ML and AI. And I'll give you one very basic example. So now we have chatbots and like image recognition systems and things like that coming up, right? If all major cloud providers have started providing things like just REST APIs, all you have to do is just call that API, and they'll give you a list of objects that are detected in the image. It will give you the coordinates of the objects. If it's humans, like it would also give you sentiments and things like that, right? So it's not entirely necessary that you know what's going on in the backend.
Right.
Having a good knowledge of how things work is a good thing, but you don't need a degree for that.
Right.
Okay,
And I
so
think these kinds of automated services, both in terms of algorithms themselves and how do you configure the infrastructure. So I think companies are coming out with products which help on both sides of the spectrum, and that is making AI more democratic in a way, because a lot many people who might necessarily not have ventured into ML are now getting into ML because of this.
Yeah, that's entirely correct. And let's face it, not everybody likes statistics. I, for one, don't like it as much. Okay, I have learned to love it, but I'm not really a statistician. I'm not naturally a statistician. It just doesn't
Yeah.
come naturally to me. So that's just a good way. Like, I mean, you have an option. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to know how to make every single algorithm work, because so many libraries, so many solutions, so many vendors now exist, and you can just use anything off the shelf,
so
or
it's
you can configure it.
making use of the abstraction which is available in the systems, the current
And
libraries and frameworks. So, do you have a question, Aditya?
yeah, I mean, just so essentially, just using those rich set of tools to do something good in a domain where you have expertise. So, which allows you to focus more on the critical problems in the field rather than worrying about the nitty-gritties of the algorithm itself or the infrastructure itself.
Yes, that's correct.
So,
Yeah.
so talking about various domains of computer science, one of the very asked question, and I know you must be scared of this question answering because the answer can get vague as it might be. But what are the ideal duties of what are the ideal duties of a machine learning versus an AI engineer versus a data engineer or a data science engineer? What exactly are the tasks of those engineers you might feel like?
Uh, I would say it's really, really fuzzy at this stage, mostly because the industry is not really mature. So even businesses right now don't really know what they want. So they just go on hiring sprees where they're like, okay, let's just get somebody who can do some data science for us. Let's just get a data engineer who can basically pump the data from some systems and just put it into a data science system of some sorts. And then you would have machine learning engineers who's supposed to scale out the models that a data scientist have prepared. But at this stage, everything is really, really fuzzy, which is a very, very scary place to be in, because then you wouldn't know what skills to develop to which might get you a good job. But it is also an opportunity, which is something that I have personally experienced and I've tried to make taken advantage of. So if you can do just the basic things in all tools, right, you're already pretty much at the top. All you have to do is understand how to prepare use cases around it, and you can actually propose that to the business. So I've basically, when I started at Upster, right, I designed my own job. Like, okay, I'm not going to be contained in a box. I'm not just going to be a data engineer or a data scientist or a machine learning engineer. I am going to do everything and I'm just going to do it the best you can or the best that is available and however you can build a solution. Right. So try and gather skills which are like baseline for all the things. You might not you don't have to be an expert at statistics, okay? Or you don't have to be an expert at cloud to scale out the solutions. But knowing the basics really helps because it helps to transition between roles when you have to. And that is pretty much going to be the state for at least I think next 3 to 5 years. So pretty much when everybody else is graduating and getting into jobs, right? It's going to be really fuzzy. So try getting all the basics right, and then you can focus on one thing and hope that you'll get a job into that. If you do not, you will just have to wait.
Right.
And that's unfortunately how it is right now and how it's going to be.
So, like, is it the case like a normal ML engineer is like some the duties of a normal ML engineer constitutes of what a software development engineer does plus the extra knowledge he brings, or is it something totally different? Like, does he have to deal with the all the normal infrastructure, coding and programming stuff, or is it something different over there? Is it totally research or is it totally analysis?
I think it's everything. So it's not just research and analysis, right? It's not just pure maths. It's not just like spending 90% of your time just trying to model it in model the data in a different way. It's not really like that. Implementation still takes up about 70 to 80% of your time, right? So you might just be doing data engineering, which just means getting data from 100 different systems into one system.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And that is also very, very relevant, and it's an important skill to have. I'll tell you why. Because now, like when it comes to data science, right now, it's not just about it's gone past the stage of feature selection. It's into feature engineering. And for that to happen, you have to know how the data is going to be processed or how the data is going to come in. Similarly, for practical use cases, right? Certain times, something technical like inference speed is much more important than how good your model is. So those are the kind of practical concerns. And you can't bring down the inference speed if you don't know how it works on the cloud or how it scales. Right, so you have to know all these things. So it's a very, very
Fuzzy.
broad set of skills that you need to have. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, definitely.
I have a question about the experience which you had, and based on your experience, what mistakes have you made, or what have you learned, so that like if I'm a student or I'm doing my master's, but there are students who are doing their bachelors. So, and if they want to start a career in machine learning in the data science field, what would you suggest based on your experience and your mistakes if you have committed any, and or what you have learned from your colleagues?
Okay, as for mistakes, I do commit plenty. So that's an ongoing thing, right? I have stopped counting how many mistakes I made.
That's the very, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think that's one of the fundamental principles of learning, that in order to learn, you have to make mistakes. You have to have a positive error gradient. Otherwise, you are at a local optimum.
Yeah, I mean, selecting what mistakes to make is also an art.
Yeah. But yeah, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
I think never lose the sight of the big picture. That would be one thing that I learned throughout all my experiences. Be very practical when it comes to data science, okay? Because there are not defined use cases. So if you if you have, say, 4 months to build a solution, you spend 3 months just trying to make your model work properly, that is going to be an issue, because then you'll not have enough time to productionize it, which is a very big thing in itself.
Right.
So I know, like, just statistics and just all the technical details that are necessary, but they're not as necessary when it comes to practical use cases. You have to be really, really practical. It's always a trade-off kind of a situation, and you have to pick things or pick ways so that it just makes it easier and converts into business. So the usefulness of things is much more relevant or much more important than just research things. So it's very, very different. Like in an academic setting, right?
Correct.
All you're responsible for, or all you have to do, is just try to get the best solution out there.
Yeah.
And when it comes to job, it becomes completely different because money is involved.
Mhm.
So if you really want to survive in this field, it's really, really necessary not to forget the big picture. Like, what are you exactly trying to do? So if you're trying to build a chatbot, what is the business goal associated with it?
Mhm.
And do not forget that throughout the journey. Because if you take eyes off that, you're going to spend too much time on all the technical, nitty-gritties, and then not going to be able to focus on other things which actually are necessary to accomplish that business goal.
Correct.
Okay. So basically, the number of parameters increases. Like in an academic setting, it's just the accuracy, whereas in the industry, we have the performance, we have to productionize it, we have to face our clients. So all the other parameters we
Also, the
need to
scale
consider.
increases tremendously over there.
Yeah.
And expectation management is a very, very vital skill to have if you want to be in this industry. Mostly because things. So I'll give you a normal example, right? So if I was working, the startup I was working for, we had about 90% accuracy in some of our models, and then we would actually produce a list for them to eyeball, and all the customers would be like, "Oh no, I can just hire somebody who's going to produce a much better result." So we would spend like 2 months building out a model which would give 90% accuracy, and we'll be like, oh my god, we're so pumped up about this. Like, this is
This is
something
it. Yes.
great, right? This is amounting to something great.
Mhm.
Or at least, even if it's a work in progress, you're still really happy about it. But then the client goes like, no, I don't want this because I can just always hire a person. So
Right.
that is going to happen, and you have to be really, really careful about. Not careful, but you have to manage expectations really well, and even your bosses. So it's not just about customers or clients, right? Even your bosses are going to be too demanding at times, and they're going to be like, "Okay, no, I want 95% accuracy," and at that time you're like, "Okay, but 95% accuracy means your model is going to overfit, and it's not going to do as well."
Right.
But now and your bosses might not be technical people, or they might not know everything
Right.
about that. Right, so at that point of time, you have to be really good at managing expectations and be like, let's start with maybe 90. Let's try and productionize that. Let's see how the clients feel about it, and then we can spend much more time improving it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean,
So
talking about industry, like one of the key things in your profile that stands out is like you have been working in India, you are working in Australia, and you have been to US also for a quite bit of time. So, what are the key differences you feel like? What's the job market is like, and what does it look like working in an AI or machine learning domain over there in all of these three continents? Yeah, three continents.
in US, I would say it's really fast. The pace of change is really, really fast, right? So if something new comes on the market, it is accepted immediately, and then people start working on it. People start building solutions around it and things like that. In Australian markets, the whole concept of digitalization is still very, very new. So there are still businesses, like major businesses, not even small ones, right? Major businesses were still not at par with the technological evolution as other countries in the world are having.
Right.
So that is pretty much like a very, very big change, and it actually required me to upskill all my soft skills because a lot of hand holding has to be done in Australian market, right? And that might not be the case in US. I just feel like companies there are generally more tech savvy than companies here. Uh,
Yes.
and it's obviously a much more opportunity if I'll look at it, because I mean it's just less competition. So that is for one. Like for a country of just 25 million people, like if you are working in this field, you're never going to be out of jobs. So let's just say that. But
Yeah.
it's like in US, it's just going to be really, really fast, and like the change is going to come really, really soon. In Australia, it's just really slow. So
So,
you have to have your patience.
And all of this
uh,
compared
so
to
uh, why?
India.
Can you? I mean, I'm curious. Can you take us through your thought process when you were applying to schools? And so, did you apply to a bunch of schools in Australia or some other places as well, apart from USA? And was that in response to the potential threat of Trump looming? Because I think you applied at that time.
Uh, No, so when did Trump come? 2016.
2016?
16,
Yeah,
yes.
but I was already in Australia in August
Okay.
2016 before he even got elected. So let's just not. So the threat of Trump wasn't there.
Okay.
My choices was mostly like I was really in love with the course that they were offering, so the business
Mhm.
intelligence and data analytics, and I'd applied only for CMU in US, like no other university at all. So I was like, if I don't get this course, I'm not going anywhere. Like,
Oh.
might as well just wait for the next year, get some more work experience, and then go. And yeah, I was like really, really specific about it. But when they gave me the Australian thing, that is pretty much the same degree, and they had, so I pretty much did about 50% of my course either through video conferencing courses, so distance courses which are offered from Pittsburgh, or when I did a semester in Pittsburgh. So
Mhm.
it really eased me out, but that was just me personally. Like, I have really strong
Right.
feelings about certain courses.
Mhm.
So that was like, oh, I don't think my decision at the time was really about anything else, and mostly it was just about trying to go out and trying to experience different kinds of cultures.
Mhm.
I was not really sure when I came to Australia if I really wanted to stay here or move to a different country. I wasn't sure. But yeah, I think 2 years and I'm pretty much in love with the country.
Yeah. Could you
And
just
so,
elaborate on? Okay.
yeah,
Uh,
sorry. I just had one more question in the sense, how was your program different from a typical computer science master's degree?
It so pretty like the typical computer science master's degree would be much more technical. Uh,
Okay.
my program, I'm that was what I was telling earlier. Like, I'm just not passionate about AI or just computer science in general. I'm really passionate about business as well, and
Mhm.
this course pretty much gave me that kind of an opportunity because we used to have courses on just basic stuff, right? So communications, presentation skills, and yeah, like we had professional writing courses and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
that was something that was really really relevant and close to my heart because I was like, okay, I mean, you can have all the technical knowledge in the world, but you still need to know how to manage
Sure.
the
Present,
stakeholders,
present your
right?
knowledge.
It's
Yeah,
just as simple as that. So yeah, it was a good match.
right.
hmm.
Omkar?
Yeah, my question was about the courses which you did at CMU, regarding machine learning or AI, which helped you later on in your career. Could you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I we had courses on preliminary courses in data mining. So just basic like classical statistics kind of a thing, right? So it didn't have any fancy stuff. So mostly not neural networks and things like that. Suddenly with too many things, right? Then when I went to US, I took this course on machine learning, which was offered from the computer science school. So
Oh,
it was still an intro course, but that was mostly focused just on the maths behind the whole thing. So that
Mhm.
wasn't as implementation focused. That was just about how algorithms are working, what are the model types, and like what kind of algorithms would you choose in what cases, and just the whole maths around it. And we used to have tests which were much more on pen and paper rather than
Mhm.
building proper software solutions.
hmm.
Uh, and it was kind of a different experience, something that I wasn't prepared for, but it also challenged me a lot. And now, like, I have a much better and a broader understanding of how algorithms work or what to choose in what case, just
Mhm.
things like that, right? And yeah, and then there were other courses as well. So it was not just about that. It was not just focused on machine learning. There were courses in data warehousing as well, which I know a lot of ML people are really against. They're like, oh, data warehouses are just things of the past. But even now, and I think for at least next 5 to 10 years, I don't think data warehouses are just going to be like it's still going to be an in thing.
Mhm.
So just by the way, if anybody still wants to get a job in data warehouse, it's still in a good place. Like, it's not really that bad. Uh, what else? There were, yeah, it was mostly those kind of courses, and yeah, and then we had courses on Python and R. Uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, like all just the programming courses. That's about it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right. And like talking about the career, like internships and jobs perspective, you always like you have some pretty decent experiences. Like you have worked for 3 different places. So what are the ideal things people look for in a resume for getting an AI or the keyword, the hyped AI machine learning internships or jobs? And what are the interviews like? What are the expectations the company has? Like like there is always this meme that goes on, like the industry demands experience and experience requires industrial knowledge. So how do people and beginners of machine learning get into such kind of careers, and what are the interviews like? Because nobody knows, like everybody knows the how the performance of software development engineer internships or job looks like, but what are the interviews or screening process for machine learning jobs look like?
So I would say the screening process really differs from company to company, and it's not really a standardized thing at the moment. Mostly because a lot of companies don't even know what they want to do. Right? It's just about hiring, so so that they can just say that we have 10 ML engineers working on our platform. They don't know what they're trying to do, but they just want to hire them. So it just varies a lot from companies to companies. So I have had a screening process where they would actually give me a data set and be like, okay, build the best model, right? Or just they would just give me a business goal and they would be like, okay, visualize it or build an ML model, do whatever you want to do, like a very, very broad set of requirements. It'd be like, okay, just do whatever you have to do just to visualize it or build an ML solution, whatever you can do with that data. So it can be something like that. Then there are traditional companies who are still looking. So as a consultant, right, I'm not just expected to know ML, I'm also expected to know SQL, data warehouses, everything under the hood of analytics. So in that case, like companies would generally go for normal traditional SQL kind of tests or Python kind of tests and stuff like that. Mostly, I've seen, like, even with talking about experiences of other friends that I have or colleagues in the industry, some level of programming experience is a necessity. Right, so either Python, R, some statistical language, or any programming language, and that is still an underlying kind of a requirement for all jobs and internships, right? So because you could have 100 different ideas, but if you can't implement it properly, it's not worth anything.
True.
So programming is something that is still necessary, and if anybody wants to get into the field, please learn and it doesn't have to be anything too hi-fi or anything too deep, but still learn some languages. And I would suggest Python or R because they're really in at the moment. And you would generally find screening process, which at least, even if it's just an initial HackerRank test, it would still have some Python questions or some SQL questions or some R questions, things like that.
So, like talking about the kind of tools and technologies, what are the common tools being used at say Servian for you? What are the common say Python or R? Is it something though those are the only tools and technologies being used back at Servian, the machine learning engineers, or are there any other things that people should learn in order to get? Because many companies do ask for if you have experience in R, D3 or Python or anything. And in your experience, what are the common trends in tools and technologies of AI?
For Servian is a consultancy, right? So the technology stack, so as to say, really depends on what the clients are using, and you just have to adjust to that. For other companies who have a service-based, who have a product-based offering, I have normally seen, and as much as I have talked to people, it's mostly about Python, or Python or R. I would suggest Python because that's my personal experience, and Python does many things. So you could build a web application, you could build like 100 different things in Python. It's not really limited. R is still in a statistical language, trying to pretend as a general purpose language form.
Yeah, mostly for data analysis and visualization tasks.
Yeah, and except for that, I think open source technologies are really picking up. So even just scikit-learn and Keras and just those kinds of things, right? If you're into neural nets, TensorFlow is also TensorFlow and PyTorch, I think, are still really useful to have. But like I said, like it still has to be like some basics across all these platforms rather than just going deep into one library or one system or one language.
Right, right. So, yeah, Omkar.
No, you can
You had?
continue.
Oh, okay. So, like, in like you are a consultant, so you might be the best person to ask this question. Is there are many different domains within the, let's say, AI umbrella that goes into, like, say, machine learning, data analysis, data scraping, deep learning, and many other domains that even I'm not aware of. What is the next big thing people can look forward to, in your humble opinion? What is the, you talk to clients very frequently, what is something that comes often very in the demand, and what might be in the next, say, 5 years? What should people be targeting or looking forward to, in your humble opinions?
Um, I think it's kind of a really broad,
Yeah,
and
I know it's
it's
it's a
pretty
lot
much
of overlap.
ambiguous at this stage. I'll be honest, like it's pretty much ambiguous at this stage, because mostly because the technology is still not mature enough where we can just be like, oh, this is going to be in for the next 5 years, right? When neural nets came out, the whole world was obsessing about it, but now people have started understanding that neural nets are really really good when it comes to perceptual tasks, right? So if it's image recognition, language understanding, things like that, it might not be as good for your normal like decision making tasks and things like that. People still prefer decision trees over
Correct.
a neural net in
Because
those
it's very opaque, hazy, it's not interpretable.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so just those kind of limitations. So every kind of algorithms or every kind of type of statistics or level of statistics has different use cases, and I think at this stage it's not really clearly defined what's going to stay and what's going to go off for the next 5 to 10 years. Like even like before 10 years, neural nets weren't even like anywhere in the horizon, right? And they've just picked up. So it's really hard to kind of say that this is going to be the thing
Yeah.
for the next few years. But as when it comes to like just fields, right? Just voice assistants, so digital assistants are really picking up. So chatbots, like and end-to-end chatbots. It doesn't just have to be text; it could be voice and everything else. So that's really picking up, mostly because even IoT systems are really really becoming better in ways. So voice assistants are something that is really and almost all businesses have at least started making some kind of investment into those fields. So voice assistants would be one. I think all the perceptual tasks, like I said, um, are really in image recognition systems, pattern recognition systems. And then I think reinforcement learning is also a very huge, I would say, domain which is picking up. So your self-driving cars, uh, the deep mind applications, all these kind of things. So just I'm still not sure how they are going to commercialize, because I mean, for self-driving cars, obviously there is a commercial case for it, but for other tasks, which is just game playing bots and things like that, I'm not really sure how they're going to be made commercial and how use cases are going to come up. But it is still a very very exciting domain which is really picking up slowly, but it is.
Yeah.
And I
So for
think you have set a very good example in the sense that apart from being technically sound, of course, you have also, uh, while choosing a career path, I think you sat down, introspected, and tried to find out that specific thing which you're interested in, which in your case was, uh, say, having
Business.
uh, essentially business acumen in a way. And I think that is something which people tend to overlook. They blindly rush into the standard model which is set for them, and they lose out on these slightly offbeat roles, which could be extremely great opportunities. So things like consultants, product managers, um, things like
Yeah,
that.
that's entirely correct, and I think anybody who wants to, and so that's I think that's something that is not really related to AI. That's something that everybody and anybody should have, because soft skills are really really important, right? And if
True.
out of college you actually show an inclination towards these things, Like at least in the last rounds of an interview, right? You're going to fare pretty much better than everybody else, because you'll show them that, okay, look, I'm not just about technology, I'm also about business, and I know that you like businesses run on money, right? So either it has to be saving money or making money. It can't just be a research program which runs endlessly without any business goal in mind. And
Yeah.
just having a basic understanding of how these things work can actually, like I said, like design a job for yourself. And AI is actually one of those fields where you are able to do it, mostly because it's still not mature. So instead of thinking of it as a hurdle that things are really vague and really fuzzy, you could actually design something for yourself, which I think, in my opinion, it's a really immense opportunity to have.
And
Okay.
I think as DAICTians, all of us have been very privileged that in our curriculum we had humanities courses, which sort of gave a which broadened our perspective. And we used to crib up with those courses then, but I think we'll realize the value of those in the long run.
Yes.
Yeah, I certainly believe like communications, negotiation, these are the skills to have. Like you have to have them, irrespective of whatever field you go to.
Right.
Okay. For, so I have one question about suppose I'm a beginner in machine learning and I have a Kaggle competition which I can participate in. I have my own some project which I'm working on like in my pastime, and I have a research opportunity with a professor in the machine learning space. So how would you compare these three experiences and how they would benefit in the industry, in the AI industry?
Uh, for the industry, it's really good to show that you have some kind of experience, even if it is research. And because the industry is not really mature, they're not expecting you to have like 100 different internships in the field, right? They Even if you can show some research capabilities, some things which are useful and some things which have a real business case. So even if it's a Kaggle competition, right? If it's a malware detection challenge, it might be useful for companies who are producing these devices, or just companies like security audits or cybersecurity firms and things like that, right? So you just have to identify. You have to try and attach a proper real business case even when you're going to research, and try and align, because when it comes to jobs and when you'll have to talk about it, you can at least say that this was the task, this was the end business goal that we were trying to accomplish. And because it was a research area, we had the opportunity, and like basically we had the advantage of going for 100 different things before having to settle for a solution.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right, so try and attach a business case to it. It doesn't have to be anything world changing, even if it solves a really small problem. But if it is a real use case, it will still be valuable.
Okay.
Right.
And so as a on a leaving note, as a consultant, do you want to make a pitch for Australia? So like, what's up, down, and up?
um yeah, well, look, Australia is about a lot of hard work and a lot of partying. If we you like you have ample opportunities to pretty much do anything, and because they are moving slightly slowly when it comes to technology, it is an immense opportunity to make something of your own, if you choose to. And yeah, if you are really used to like being given tasks and just doing it and having a very very clear path, Australia might not be a place for you, because you'll end up doing things that you might not have thought about.
Right. And like, yeah, so just one of the last questions, like you being a consultant might be the best person. What are some in general tips to any of the newbies, regardless of being a computer science enthusiast or machine learning engineer? What are some of the in general advices to sum up your, say, maybe 5 or 6 years of experience? What are some end tips you might give to any newbie?
Learn to code. First thing, learn to scale. The second thing, right? You have to know how to implement your solutions and how to scale it properly, because we are no longer in a stage where just making your code run on one machine is enough. So distributed applications are really, really important. Even if you're just a data scientist who's just trying to do some statistics, you'll still end up having to work with distributed systems. So learn how to scale. whatever you're trying to implement. Except for that, yeah, Kaggle doesn't mean success. So even if you are at a Kaggle master level, doesn't mean you're going to be able to build world-class products. So understand that business use cases are as important as technical knowledge,
Yeah.
right? And be really good at stakeholder management. So managing expectations, learning how to talk with people, and how to like just having the courage to go up to people and be like, okay, this is what I really want to build, and this is how I'm going to build it. That is something that is really important. And as software engineers, we tend to overlook it, thinking that we have the technical know-how and that's enough. Well, that's not. So yeah, just try to gather as much soft skills as technical skills if you can.
Right. This was the perfect sequence of advice because the last two videos were done with two Google engineers, and they stressed on the fact of getting a Kaggle experience was something you should definitely try on. And I guess most of the people who will be watching this video is like, okay, what's Kaggle? Let's learn about that. But yeah, the advice is really good. There's much more to machine learning than just Kaggle competitions. But
And I think that is one of the beauties of these videos, talking to different people, that you get so many different perspectives, and that will allow the audience to find their own paths, find efficiencies in their approach, and get the best possible optimization, I suppose.
yeah, yes, definitely. So yeah. Thanks a lot, Shraddha, for taking the time out. Oh, sorry, you were saying something.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay. So yeah, thanks a lot for taking the time out on a Sunday morning. I hope we didn't ruin it too much for you. And
So I think
and
it's a good time to talk to people.
yes, and hopefully people who are watching this video can maybe connect to you in any ways possible. We'll maybe share your LinkedIn profile so that people can connect to you. And yeah, hopefully we try to build an ML community so that people are much more aware of what they are going for and what to do. Okay.
And enjoy the summer while we freeze in the northern hemisphere.
Oh well, even the summers are really bad here. Okay, we have UV radiations and skin cancers.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me, and all the best for the internship season.
Thank you so much.
Get the best ones, and yeah, keep
Okay.
coding.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks a lot.
See you guys. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.